Welcome one and all to Creative Spark, my YouTube show where I talk to cool people about the cool things that they do. With me today is a woman who's mastered every creative thing ever. Uh, Mayanna Berrin,
That
welcome.
I peaked. I can't follow that.
That's fine. Good interview. Thanks for making time.
That's the sweetest thing anyone's ever said about me. Thank you.
How's it going?
So good. How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good.
Good. It's
Yeah.
what? It's night for you,
It is. It's
right?
8 p.m. here, yeah.
8 p.m. Heck yeah.
And it's lunchtime for you.
It's 12. It's noon. Ooh.
The PST interviews are some of the trickiest.
I
Um,
know.
Although I've interviewed two people in Australia, and those are much harder because those are morning my
Oh.
time, and I am not a morning person.
Ah,
Like,
that's tough.
deeply not a morning person. I don't have a huge amount of say in it because of the kids. Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
they kind of take that option away from you,
Yeah, they're like,
unfortunately.
you're a morning person, and now
When they're teenagers, everyone's like, "Oh, but you'll miss it when they're sleeping until 12," and I'm like, "You are wrong.
you're wrong. I'm sleeping until 12 too.
I am also going to be staying up to 2 o'clock in the morning gaming. Like, we're all going to be doing the same thing. That's great.
You'll be on the same schedule. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
it's finally. So, you do, and I'm going to miss some stuff here because you do everything. You do writing, voice acting, improv, TTRPG, actual play stuff as well.
Yes,
And I know
and
I've missed some stuff.
podcasts.
And podcasts. See, I told you. Um, which of those came first and how did it
Ooh,
start?
great question. I think I started I lived in Florida for a while. I'm originally from New York, but my family moved to Florida when I was a teenager.
Mhm.
And weirdly, there's an improv school in Orlando called SAC Improv Lab. A lot of like Disney theme park employees are also like teachers there, which is
Right.
very cute. Yeah, the good synergy. And they let you take classes there when you're 16.
Mhm.
It's like I think it's like the youngest age you could start. So I started doing improv when I was 16. I also had a period of time in Orlando where I was technically not in school. I was doing school online because weirdly, although Florida as a state has a lot of very wonky laws,
Mhm.
they have a weirdly robust online schooling program
Oh, okay.
that's like funded by the state. So I was doing school online. I was working from home before it was cool. Okay. And so I was doing online school and improv classes. So that was the thing that I think came first. I also I was doing a little bit of like playwriting in class because I was a theater student person. And so I remember I had to write a play based off of the Persephone and Hades myth.
Nice.
And so that was kind of like my first script I ever wrote. So writing and improv around the same time for sure.
How how does that lead to where you are now?
So, such a great question. My life is a winding, silly little road of a bunch of decisions that I didn't know were like really important at the time, which I think is the best way to make life altering decisions. But I started playing TTRPGs in college very briefly. Right before midterms hit. And then we were all like, we can't do this. But yeah, so I was doing improv and doing theater, and I had a lot of very sweet, nerdy friends, and they wanted to get into TTRPGs. So we started with like Pathfinder,
Mhm.
and I think we did like one session of Pathfinder, and then all of those friends were pre-med students, so they
Right.
immediately got too busy to ever play TTRPGs again. So I didn't even really like think about TTRPGs as a thing really until I was working at Riot Games. I got that job because I had been a geek or like a think geek store manager,
Okay.
and there's an on-site esports arena at Riot Games because they're obviously really big on esports for League of Legends. And so I was running the on-site esports gift shop
Okay.
essentially. So I was doing that, and so I was in the office 3 days a week, and then running the arena stuff twice a week. So on the days when I was in the office, I was getting to know people in other
Mhm.
departments, and I met a lovely woman named Sean Main, and she was getting a group together of folks to play D&D after work.
Cool.
Yeah, so super fun. Also low-key spoiled. Sean Main used to work at Wizards of the Coast and specifically was in charge of game balancing Magic the Gathering.
Right.
So she was like the best first DM I think anybody could have ever had. She was awesome and she was so sweet. And so we did a campaign at my job for like a year and a half. So
Mhm.
I'd finish work and then I'd stay at work for 3 more hours and roll dice with my coworker friends. Didn't know that TTRPGs was something that had, a presence really outside of just playing with your friends. And then during the pandemic, I'd signed with a manager, a talent manager, and he was very familiar with the space. He had used to work at Geek and Sundry, and they were doing casting and chemistry tests for Vampire the Masquerade, because they were about to start shooting New York by Night. So that was like, I didn't have any footage of me playing D&D online at that time, but he was like, she has a lot of improv experience. She has a lot of acting experience. She has a lot of voice acting experience. Just bring her in and test her out. And so Jason Carl ran that test game, and Alex Ward was one of the other players who I believe was already attached to the project, and we were just looking to see who linked up. And so he and I had a really good rapport, and Jason and I really hit it off. And then I was offered the part of Seraph for New York by Night, and that's kind of that's how I found myself in the TTRPG community.
It's very cool. How was that first experience doing an actual play?
Well, what was funny about it was my first actual play, and I was playing with Abria Iyengar. So that was I feel like that's
That's like, it was my first acting gig, and I was, opposite Maggie Smith or someone.
Exactly, with like Philip Seymour Hoffman or something.
Exactly.
She was so sweet. We were the cast was 2 masked people and 2 femme people. So she and I also shared a dressing room. So we hit it off right away. I mean, she's so sweet, and I got to just ask her a lot of questions, and so playing with her didn't feel intimidating. Like, she's a very welcoming, lovely, warm person, and I think she was also excited to be a player as opposed to like running a game. So she was having a lot of fun too. So it was a really amazing experience, and she and I are still friends to this day. And we were like hugging in the parking lot after we would wrap for the day. And so she rocks. So it was a very wild, surreal time, but I learned a lot working on that show, and I got bit by the bug, obviously, and I was like, this rocks. I was like, I want to do more of this. This is so fun.
What came next in the actual play space for you after Vampire the Masquerade?
Great question. I think what was interesting is, so we shot that in 2021. And then it was kind of that weird middle ground of the pandemic. And I was also, where was I working at that point? I think I was working at Mattel at that point during the day. And so I was, and working on applying to the Nick program and stuff. So I was like doing other writing things. And it was interesting. It was like a little bit of like probably about a year where nothing was really happening. And then when I was in the program with my writing partner, Brian, we were supposed to take classes at UCB as part of the training program, but it ended up not happening. But I was like, I really miss improv. It's been so long since I've been at a school and taking classes. And my partner, Brian, was like, well, you play D&D, and like we'd been playing in a home game with some of his friends, and I was having a lot of fun doing that. He's like, it's improv, it's acting, it's free. It's like, you don't have to pay for classes. You can just do that. He's like, you should probably just play more Dungeons and Dragons. And so I reached out to David Tilstra, who we've known each other for like 5 or 6 years now. And I knew he was doing Dungeons and Dragons and specifically like podcast things. So I reached out to him and asked if he would get lunch with me. And I was like, can I just like talk to you about TTRPG stuff? Cause you seem like you're doing a lot of it. Yeah. And then we kept getting lunches together. And he told me that he really wanted to work on making his own TTRPG actual play show. So that was like last summer, and then he brought me on, and then we got a team together, and then we produced Story Quest, which is one of the bigger TTRPG projects that I'm attached to at the moment, in terms of how much time I spend on it and how passionate I am about it. And then what was wild was we shot that in February of this year, and then we got a panel at Comic-Con, and then like we went to a couple other conventions. We went to WonderCon, we went to Comic-Con, and a couple other things. And then it just started to spin up really fast, where a couple other of my friends were like, we're doing this podcast called The Wandering Path. Do you want to be in it? And I was like, yes. And then other friends like, we're doing this thing. You want to be in this? And I was like, yes. And then Venture Forth reached out, I'm like, do you want to be a guest on this thing? And so then I just ended up doing a bunch of TTRPG stuff this year. So this year has definitely been like the year that it really has become one of the more like cornerstones of my life, I would say. But yeah, it was like just a slow build from 2021, but this year is really the year where I'm like, I'm rolling dice like 3 times a week, and I'm
Yeah,
so happy.
it's incredibly cool.
Thank
Um,
you.
do you feel as though the order in which Story Quest has done things in terms of doing panels and stuff? Obviously, the
Hmm.
series is releasing now. I believe
Mm-hmm.
episode 3's just
Mm-hmm.
come out. I could be
Episode
saying
three,
that.
thank you. You are so well researched. Yes,
I
episode
tried.
3 just came out, and we are premiering episode 4 on Twitch tonight.
Tonight. This will be last week when this
That's
goes up.
fine. So it'll be up on YouTube 2 weeks after today, which would make that what, like
The future.
December 2nd. Yeah, the future. We
I
love
don't
the
know.
future.
Some point
Yeah,
in the future.
sometime that's not right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. I can't perceive that.
I
Um,
can't either. That doesn't exist yet. That's made up. That's
yeah.
Monopoly money.
Do you feel as though you did the yeah, do you feel as though you did like the panels and stuff
Hmm.
before the show was like big? And is that odd?
It was interesting. So again, we shot it in February, and in addition to all of the other jobs that David has on the show, David is also the singular editor of season 1. Uh-huh.
Editing's hard work. That's why I don't do it.
Yep. And we shot with, I think, seven cameras. So there's
Wow.
7 isolated shot configurations. So yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
nightmare.
Yep. We have a Patreon. If anybody wants to give David some
There'll
money,
be a link. There'll be a link
that
below.
would be really cool. He could buy a sandwich anyway. But so, when we shot it, we understood that it was going to be sort of a longer post-production process because we only have one editor.
Mhm.
And our original intention was to release the show when all of the episodes were done,
Yeah.
probably around the time, like this time this year, which is like we're in November, December time. But we had a lovely friend who hooked us up with a panel and like had, connections to the organizers and was like, hey, you're looking for more people to do panels? Like this crew just started this show. And so when we got that panel, we had about 2 months of lead time between knowing we got the panel and then doing it. And so we were having meetings. We have what's called the Story Quest Council, which is 6 folks. Several of them are cast members, and some of them are just like producers as well. And we meet every 2 weeks to talk about the show and like figure out what we want to do about different things. And so we talked about it, and we were like, okay, we have this opportunity to present ourselves live publicly, essentially for the first time. And so given that we got that opportunity, we moved our production schedule up to, hey, if we're going to do this panel, we're going to release our first episode, like essentially the next day.
Yeah.
So it changed a lot of things, but I think it was really exhilarating because, we spent a lot of time deciding what we wanted to do for the panel. It was going to be a one shot. And so we came up with an original story that features all of the same characters. So it's like, hey, you get to see these characters. If you like these characters, that's fun.
Awesome.
We set it sort of like Lion King 1.5 style. So it's set kind of in between like episodes 8 and 9. So we have a little bit more of our abilities and our powers, and we're more familiar with each other. And we just tried to think of like a fun standalone adventure that would be engaging for an audience. We promoted it a lot. We had a wonderful turnout. I think we had like 160 people in the crowd, which was amazing. And yeah, there was just like a lot of energy and exhilaration. And so it was fun to then be like, and if you like this, we have good news for you. More show is coming. I think it wasn't necessarily what we led out to do or like what we thought would happen, but it worked. And like what the beautiful thing about D&D as a game is like it's collaborative storytelling. You think you're going to go one way and then things go a different way, and you learn how to pivot and adjust and make changes. And I think even in the production, as this channel has grown and changed this year, like, hey, we thought we were going to release at this time. We're moving it up. We're doing a monthly release schedule, and it's this very organic, fluid production process. Like we're still actively filming our shadow puppet recaps, which is what we do at the top of each episode to be like, here's what happened last episode, and our B-roll shoots.
Right.
So it's still very much like a living show, which is kind of fun. Like we get to meet up and spend time together and keep making this thing we've all grown to really love.
Is that going to be what you're doing for the foreseeable future? Are you going to continue with that, or is it based on how the first season does?
I mean, we have plans to do more seasons, budget and time constraints permitting. We've talked about alternative content creation, things like Twitch streams or podcast seasons, things that we can do that are, sustainable and allow us to continue to make and tell stories. Because like ultimately the biggest thing is we just love D&D and we love telling stories. And so any opportunity we get to keep doing that as this team, we're going to find a way to do it. So we're doing this. It's going.
That's very cool. Is it nice to be attached to like a single project at the moment instead of like mercenarying about?
It is. It's fun to have a home base for sure. I love all of the shows I've gotten to work on, in different capacities. Like the other show that I'm attached to in a pretty consistent capacity is The Wandering Path. But what's different there is I am a cast member, but I'm not as involved in the production side of things, which is also kind of nice because like things just happen and I show up and I get to just be funny for like 2 hours and I'm like, wee. So that's like a nice little break for me. But yeah, it's nice to have a place where we are beholden to ourselves. Like we hold ourselves accountable. We have things that we want to do, but and we are excited to explore opportunities with sponsors and some of these other systems that we're starting to discuss. But like in general, that it's a show that we made that's like our child, that our thing is really fun and very empowering as a creative, I would say.
I can imagine. In amongst all of that, you've also done voice acting.
Yes.
Including for a character in Fire Emblem Heroes, right?
Yes, that's Embla. Sweet, sad Embla.
There's not a single non-traumatized Fire Emblem character in any of the games. I don't know why they won't let any of these people be happy.
So true. That's just one of them. I know. Any of them being cheerful, I'm like,
They're all just D&D character backstories. There's not a single one that's just like, yeah, I'm just a dude.
So true. That's so true. Oh my gosh. Yes, they are all just D&D characters.
I love Fire Emblem.
I love Fire Emblem.
But they need one
therapy.
Just turns
they
up
need
like,
one therapist.
One therapy. Just one therapy amongst the entire cast.
Un therapy, por favor.
How was the voice acting process for that?
So fun. So what was funny about that was like, for folks who aren't super familiar with voice acting, for the most part, when you get a casting breakdown, it has a code name. So you won't know what you're actually auditioning for, which makes sense for obviously like legal and leaks and, different projects. Yeah. But for a voice actor, you got to treat everything like it's Star Wars or something. You don't know what it's going to be. Yeah. So it had like a totally different code name. I had no idea what it was. And they had generic art. It was just like a drawing of like a vague goddess. Right. And so I was like, okay, she's a lady. They changed all the names of the characters. So I think her character name was like Chariot. I was like, I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this could be. So then I got the booking and I do the remote session and they're like, okay, cool. This is Mayanna and the reps from Nintendo are here. And I was like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, this is Fire Emblem. And I was like, oh, great.
Touch of heads up would have been nice.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, okay. They were so sweet. It was a really fun session. And it's funny because like obviously I am not a spooky bat lady. So getting to be in my like dark sad girl vibe was very fun. Voice acting sessions also in general are quite fast. Like usually you record in like an hour to 2 hour blocks. So you're just going through everything pretty quickly. The one thing that was really fun was they were like, okay, so she can turn into a bat. And I was like, okay, cool. And it's like, and we don't really know. We're trying to figure out like what that sounds like what bat Embla sounds like. And so I got to do a bunch of like, like all these different little feral, sounds. So and I was like, it's so fun. Absolutely.
Probably feeding into the D&D.
Oh yeah,
vibes there.
I love a feral little creature. I'm just like, rah, rah. Like if I could just go fully nonverbal for a session, I would. Just, like just whatever. I don't care.
I'm a huge fan of making weird noises. My Aarakocra monk squawks when he's laughing.
Amazing.
Amazing. Oh,
that's.
He feels really well. He's a very serious. He's a super like lawful good, very serious monk. Like fully devoted to like being wise beyond his years and stuff, because Aaron Cockrell lived to 30, so he's 17, which is
Amazing.
very old for him. It's a very silly character. It's not. It is in the anyway. Yeah. The whole I like doing weird feral noises in between actual lines is great fun.
Delightful.
You've also done producing on the Polly Pocket Adventure Studios, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes, I feel like I'm Batman. I always have like a day job that's one thing, and then my night job, which is like being a silly little guy on the internet. But during the day, I've done a lot of like creative production work. So I was working at Mattel for about 2 years, and I was in their creative development department. And I was working on the Enchantimals doll line, which I don't know if they're still working on it, and then Polly Pocket. Cool. Those were like my girls. Barbie, obviously, she's so big. She has her like own dedicated creative development person who just works on that. And then, oh yeah, I was also doing a little bit of Monster High and then Disney Princess, but Polly Pocket was like my main girl. And I was a big Polly Pocket fan when I was a kid. I remember like that clickety clack, like Snap-on Clothes mall set came out, and it was like a revelation. I was like, oh my God. So Polly Pocket's gone through a lot of really fun rebrands over the years, as all doll lines at Mattel have. And the current iteration of Polly is really cute. She loves science. She does engineering. She skateboards. She loves like theater tech. She's a very fun girl. And the coolest thing is she's got this locket that's magic, and it can shrink her to 3 inches tall, and she goes on fun, silly little adventures with her friends. And while I was working there, they had extra budget to explore like a more narrative focused CG series for YouTube. And so I developed this pitch for Polly Pocket Adventure Studios, which was, you know, in tandem with, there's also like a Netflix show and there's like a 2D YouTube show. So there's a lot of Polly content if you like our sweet little 3-inch girl. But this one in particular, I was like, Polly is a scientist and she likes making inventions and things, and we don't really get to explore that element as much in these other series. So I presented a narrative concept called Polly Pocket Adventure Studios, where she's got this science lab she built inside a gutted PC case that she hides in her closet. And that's where her and her 2 friends, Lila and Shawnee, do wacky experiments and things go wrong. Very like Jimmy Neutron inspired. So that was super fun. And we did, I think, 3 seasons of that. There's some episodes still coming out now on YouTube, which are super cute. And yeah, it's just like a fun, wacky series. I also, I got to do like my mood board and my thing of like pacing wise, I'd really love it to feel like Spider-Verse. And so we went with this like minimized frame rate thing. So there's a lot of these like cool, jumpy, stylized cuts and different things like that. A lot of action lines and cool cutaway comic book things. So I got to take a lot of these like fun stylized elements and make my silly little YouTube show. It was very, very magical.
Very, very cool. Is there one of these things that you prefer above the others?
Oh man. Oh,
not the direct projects, but the roles.
Yeah. Like of all the things, I mean, I love storytelling. Like across, however I can tell a story, that is what I love to do. So like with voice acting, I get to do it in one way. With producing, I get to do it a different way. With TTRPGs, I get to do it a different way. It's like I'm just obsessed with stories. I don't know. I'm a big story nerd. I think about like narrative arcs and structure all the time, and so they all offer me different lessons and different challenges and obstacles to overcome. So I can't pick a favorite. If I'm fortunate enough to continue to do all of them, I will.
Very understandable. Have you considered, well, I imagine you have, is there an actual play in the future in which you're the DM?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
In the works or just in general?
Yes and yes. There's if we're fortunate to shoot season 2 of Story Quest, I will be DMing that one. It's an original setting that I have developed that's inspired by my time in the video game industry and my love of JRPGs and romance and video games in general. It's just my big love letter to video games. So I'm very, very excited we're technically in pre-production on it, but it's still very early days. But I am very excited to tell that story. So, and I hope there's other opportunities for me to GM other actual play stuff in the future. So we shall see.
Have you done GMing before, or would that be one
Yes,
thing
I
that you,
have.
you have? Okay.
That I've done a little bit. So my DMing journey started last year. That was originally why I first got lunch with David, because I have Reed Seitz, who's on Story Quest, is a dear friend of mine, and she DMs, her partner Tyler DMs, and David DMs. So I got lunch with all of them at different points, and I was like, can I just like ask you about being a dungeon master? And they were like, sure. I'm like, great, awesome. Because it knowing now, that's such a wild question. Like, that's just like, yeah, I guess I'll guess we'll eat Thai food and I'll tell you about how I don't know, create stat blocks. I'm like, that is, yes, exactly. But when I first got lunch with David, like we talked about all of the different, like he gave me all of his favorite actual plays, like Adventure Zone, and just different things that have influenced his style, and then his DM philosophy. And I asked a lot of different DMs that I spoke to as well about their different DM philosophies. And I was just like, it was just this part of, after having played for so many years, I was like, okay, I do want to explore this. I was very intimidated at first, but then I was like, okay, well, at some point I just have to like run a session and just get it over with. And so I got that One Shot Wonders book that that Critical Role was promoting pretty hard, and it was a lovely book. I have it. It rocks. And there was a setting in there that was like a theater that's haunted by a ghost, and so I kind of took that setting, reworked some story stuff, created like a custom list of technical difficulties that happen during the show, different things like that, and ran that for Reed and her other home game friends. And so that was like my first time DMing. And I remember thinking as I drove home, I'm like, that went great. Like I was, I was like, heck yeah. I was like, that rocked. I'm like, can't wait to do that again.
I'm so
that
good
ruled.
at this.
Yeah. I was like, wow. No, truly, I was like, yeah, that went awesome. Like, and I truly never feel that way about anything I ever do. And I was just like, she ate, but you know. But yeah, so I've been doing that now since like February or March of this year. And then I GM'd a campaign for Pixel Circus. But I think that's the only GMing stuff I have so far, but I'm very excited to do more of it. I really, really love it. Yeah, it feels right. It feels like a good little combination of like, I get to do a little voice acting, I get to do a little writing, I get to do a little improv, and it's all in one little job. It's great.
Very, very cool. Yeah, running a game is the ultimate combination of every creative skill you could find, basically.
Yes, exactly. And I love all of them, and they're such a fun. It's just fun to challenge myself to try and do all of them at the same time. It rules.
Are you planning on sticking? You said in a blur. I'm not going to cut that out. I do. I'm just tired. Is there a system that you're going to be sticking with? You mentioned that you were looking at other systems for Story Quest at the moment, so or are you going to be sticking with D&D?
I mean, we love D&D in this house, but I think like one, we want to explore developing some of our own systems and mechanics. That's something that's really exciting to us, and I do want to explore into other systems, because I do feel like, you know, D&D is this standard, and obviously I think in terms of the one people are most familiar with, it's definitely the most well-known one. But there are such fun, unique systems out there. I was able to be a play tester for the TTRPG that they used to promote the new Life is Strange game. And that one was really cool, and it was like a D6 system, and there was like a shared D6 pool, and I found the mechanics of that really interesting, because it was this kind of like borrowing or like paying Peter to pay Paul, where it was like you could take one now, but then you couldn't take one later, or you could take one from someone else, or give one of yours to somebody else. But it kind of just like shifts around like who can do what, and like, so keeping that action economy and like ability economy in mind was really interesting. I'm diving into Arkham Horror RPG a little bit, which just came out. I really like Fiasco, and I'm working on kind of developing a system inspired by that with a friend of mine. I also really like Fall of Magic and The Quiet Year. I think I love D&D. Combat is something that we're in a complicated relationship where I'm trying to figure out what my access point into combat is, and how I can kind of take the things I love about RP and other aspects of D&D and like better fold them into, I think, the things that are a little bit crunchier for me about combat. So I'm still working on that, but finding systems that are just storytelling forward and RP forward. I'm really excited about what Brotherwise is doing with the Cosmere system. Yeah, so I do want to branch out into developing other systems and doing that game design thing, and then also just seeing what else is out there. So if anybody has recommendations, please DM me on Instagram. I do respond. Yeah.
Very cool. What would you say is like the thing you aim for when you are running a game? Are you aiming for big
Ooh.
story beats? You aim, because I aim generally for big story beats, and then for every
Mhm.
single fight to be the most terrifying thing the players have gone through, which I ever so slightly overtune.
That's
But I
great.
can't help it.
No, that's good. I get it. I get it. I think man, it depends on the game. I think number one objective, always 100%, is did the players have fun?
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. And I think I do really love when there's a one shot that I ran for some friends, and it was a girly pop, like K-pop heist.
Very cool.
And it was and I was like, okay, so the one requirement is you guys are all in the same band. You guys are about to break up, and this could be your last show. And so seeing how the players interpreted the relationships that were developing between the bandmates and people who were estranged. Like I had a group chat going for this home game, and two of them started RP that they both dated the same guy named Trant, and they were like having big feelings about who dated Trant first and stuff. And then Trant obviously made an appearance. And so seeing that character come in and how these two players dealt with the relationships around that and came back together as friends in a really beautiful way, like finding opportunities for players to just explore very interesting relationship dynamics is always kind of something that I'm seeking. And I also really like to do like psychological damage a little bit. I do like to put them in situations where just a little for fun, as a treat.
Yeah.
Just as a little treat, like just a little tasty.
For me,
Just
since my
for
gift
me,
is
just for
some
me.
small trauma.
Just a little pretzel for me. I worked so hard. I deserve my treat. So yeah, seeing characters get pushed to a place where they have to overcome like a limiting belief. That's like always that's the thing I'm always trying to find. Do I always get there? No, but that's the dream, right? And then with combat, it's just continuing to figure out, like, I think right now I veer too heavy on the side of like, I don't think of combat as something my players can lose.
Right.
So I need to start working on that aspect of like, hey, yeah, you could die. Like I've never knocked somebody out yet.
I've
Like
killed like so many players.
I've
One
killed so
specific
many.
player, his characters, my dice hate. He was the creature that was attacking him, and so I killed him by accident with a crit from a phase spider, and like he was level 3. And I was
my God.
really sorry about this. You feel this heat spread through your body, and then the heat becomes completely unbearable, and everyone else watches as you become a puddle. And then literally the next session with his replacement character,
No.
I like homebrewed worms, but like juvenile ones, so they were weaker. And there was a fight they were going to win because the worms had been fighting amongst themselves for some prey, right? And they poisoned one of the worms, and then I rolled 2 nat 20s. And I was like, you are inside the worm. You have 1 turn before you will not exist anymore.
Oh
Sorry.
my God.
And I was like, I can't control what the dice do. Like, my
It's
dice
true,
hate you.
it's
Specifically
true.
you.
They hate you.
Just
They're
you.
like, this character, next one, new
Yeah.
idea, new
No,
choice.
not this one either. And it's like,
not
I'm
this
so
one.
sorry.
Not this guy in
yeah.
particular. That is so funny. I know I haven't gotten there yet. That's a milestone I haven't hit yet as a dungeon master. And I am ultimately like, I do want my players to win. I do spoil them. They're my little kids, and I care about them so much, and I'm so proud of them. But I do need to be good cop, bad cop sometimes. And so I'm trying to figure out the balance of that.
It's tough. I don't know
It's
that I
hard.
perfected it. I think the issue with combat in a storytelling medium, which is what TTRPGs are for. That's how I view it anyway, and
100%.
That's how so many people view it. is having a fight where they easily win, unless the point is that they easily win it, because
Yes.
it's very hard to manage, and I don't want them to be fighting things. So I like every fight to be pretty skin of your teeth.
Yeah.
Which is a very hard thing to balance,
It
especially
really is.
because we switched from the old 5e rules to the 24 rules partway through
Amazing.
several of our campaigns.
Amazing.
And the players are so strong in the new PHB.
Oh, that's interesting.
So strong.
I mean, the weapon, the fact that like every weapon has a condition now, like that it's like you get sap or hex or like slow or all these things, which rules. I think that's so cool. But yeah, it's been kind of fun. I mean, not fun, but like it's been interesting to see people's reactions to the new player's handbook and the new rules. Because I actually, maybe hot take, I don't know. Like I like the new rules. I think change is good. Getting familiar with a new thing is good, but it's funny seeing people be like, they nerfed the sleep spell, and I'm like, well, maybe the sleep spell needed to be nerfed a little bit, you know, maybe. Like. Also, you're not supposed to know what the HP of a creature is, so that mechanically is very silly.
It was always a very stressful spell to cast, because you could be like, oh yeah, I cast sleep on these 3 dudes. Did I get any of them?
Yeah.
Like any of them? Especially because my dice luck with my characters is shocking. So it's like, oh, just ones. All of these are ones. Wonderful.
That's so funny.
It's only when I'm accidentally trying to kill a player that
there you go. Then they're like, hey. That's where the little, that's like their little gremlin moment. Yeah, exactly. That's their time. That's their treat. Yeah.
It's hell. Do you prefer playing or do you prefer running games?
I prefer running games. I do. I mean, God, playing rocks. I mean, I love playing. It's so fun. But I think like, I don't know, maybe it's because I just turned 30 or whatever. I'm like in this new phase of life. I'm like, wow, look at you growing and changing before my eyes. I'm like, I'm having this just like, it's like, oh, like I'm so excited for them. And I'm just like, here's a little guy for you to meet. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, I know, it's so fun. Like, it's fun to get to give back, especially after having played for so long and having had so many amazing dungeon masters in my life, to be somebody who can give that gift to people. I'm running my first like off-air campaign for some friends from Nickelodeon starting tonight, and I am so excited because most of them have only done one shots before, and some of them have only played D&D one time, and it is such an honor and like a gift and a privilege that their experience of D&D will in some way be informed by me, and like the responsibility of that and the gift of that, and like getting to share this game that I love and has changed my life in so many amazing ways with people who are nervous. Like, people get so nervous to play D&D for the first time because they think, you know, especially if they watch actual play or, you know, Critical Role, all of these things, like I have to do all these things. And I'm like, no, it's supposed to be fun. Like, it's supposed to be this thing, and that I can bring people in and hold them close and share this thing. It's like, it's very special. So I love running games.
Do you go all in on the NPC voices?
It depends on the NPC voices, but generally, yeah, I would say so. Like, not everybody can be a rare little guy, but I do. They are mostly that. I have gotten, it's so fun to play a feral idiot. But I was having fun with, like, I'm doing this this setting that I've developed, like my homebrew or whatever. And when I ran a part of it for a friend, basically it's this: there's a forest, and whoever goes into the forest doesn't come back. And it's basically become illegal to go into this forest because they're like, we legally can't guarantee your safety. So like, don't go there. And so just don't go there. And so one of my players is like, I'm going into the forest. And so I was like playing his friend who's like working, and he's like, what? Like, great. What do you want me to write on your gravestone? Because I'll get to work on that right away for you, since you're speaking crazy nonsense in my ears. Apparently, it's like finding those fun little rich, like, because every NPC should in some way bolster the story and bolster the relationships and make these characters feel just like so rich and so lived in. So finding that kind of spectrum of different characters. But I go in on the acting regardless. That is something that I can't help but do. I love RP, and I have a BFA in theater, so I got to use my degree somehow. I spent enough money on it. I got to do something.
Do you ever feel like you have a hard time stepping back as the DM and letting your players just do their thing?
Ooh, yes, it is something that I've definitely had to work on, because one, the improviser in me, I love adding little things. Like I'll just like add a little sprinkle, where like kind of like my favorite thing in improv when I see scenes is like two people at a table like having a dinner, and then like a third person comes in as the waiter. And it's just like it doesn't even need to be doing that much. The waiter can like come in, do a joke, and leave. But like I love doing those little drive-bys. So pulling back and just like letting them be at camp and talk to each other and do all that. That is something where I'm like, I want to play too. Like I want to be in there with you guys, but it's like, it's all good. We're gonna get there. Then that's the other gift as a DM, is like I get to let these people discover each other, and I have to give them an opportunity to do that so that they can care, and that the rest of the story can continue and they can be excited about where it's going.
Very, very cool. What is the ideal path forwards from you out of all of these things?
Oh my God, great question. The ideal path. I mean, it's so interesting. You're a creative professional, I assume. Like you're
write for a living. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my God, we gotta talk off air about what you're working on. But as a creative professional, I think the dream is getting to work on enough things that pay your bills, that's your life, that you can find ways to feed your creativity in a way that allows you to live. So that's my ideal. Like currently my day job is I'm writing on a video game, which has been a dream of mine since I was a young child. And so if I can continue to write on that, write on TTRPGs, like use this imagination of mine that is vast and won't leave me alone for 2 seconds, that is the ideal path. So I like doing a lot of things. I like all of the things I learn about myself getting to be a creative. And yeah, so if I can just keep this train moving, get those wheels greased and not break down, not burn out. That's self-care. Also drink water, eat food, go to sleep, that kind of stuff. That's the dream for sure.
Is there anything that you want to plug?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I check out StoryQuest. We are on YouTube. We also have a Twitch. We're hoping to do a little bit more content for Twitch maybe in the new year. Check out The Wandering Path, which is a podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm very excited because Spotify just got comments, which is very fun, because when you do a podcast, you put it out there and you don't know how it went.
Silence.
You don't know. Silence. The literal void. The literal void. My voice is out there forever in the darkness.
That's just how it feels being a low-level YouTuber, honestly. So like relatable.
Yeah, truly, yeah. So like check out StoryQuest on YouTube, check out The Wandering Path on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Venture Forth. I did a sum shot on there, and the last episode I think also premieres tonight on Twitch, and then we'll be up on YouTube tomorrow. So by the time this is out, it'll be done. I think that's everything right now. I'm having a lot of fun. Check out this guy's stuff. Keep watching him, okay? He's doing good work here.
You don't know that.
Yes, I'm sure I do. I can feel it from how professional your emails were when you reached out to me.
I'm so professional in emails, and it belies a complete hatred of professionalism in
I get it.
life.
We're all in a love-hate relationship
ADHD.
there you go. We're all in a love-hate relationship. It's complicated, but we got to try. We have to try.
Wonderful. Right. Thank you so much for coming on. We're going to do
Thank you for having me.
Which was which originates from Pointy Hat, Antonio D'Amico. Because he was the first person I had on the show. So we just stare at the camera and we wave awkwardly, and it's wonderful.
Okay.
You ready? Okay, let's go. So, bye.